I just said, Chochi, thank you very much for your words that brought us onto land, and particularly the fact that you didn't just talk about the talking, you also talked about the doing, which I thought was quite powerful. And I'm zooming in from the land of the Wongal people, the people of the West. And I mean, you said everything that needs to be said, and the only thing I was thinking in my head was to add the recognition of the epistemic violence that's done to First Nations people by the academic world, and how I kind of think about my duty not to replicate any of that. So that was the only kind of thing I wanted to add to that. Because a big part of the influence in how I kind of think and do and be is from my ancestral heritage, which is Celtic Irish, and because I used post-colonial theorizing in my PhD, for the integrity of it, the first page after the title page, the kind of first page of content was a bianach, and a bianach is the Irish word for sacred word or blessing. And those of us who have survived oppression do use words and song and dance, etc., as beautiful ways of survivance. And so what I did was, as well as the data analysis, took the beautiful words of the young survivors who spoke to me and wove it into a bianach to recognize their wisdom. And so I would like to start the presentation in that vein. Bianach, my colleagues, or those I can see and those I cannot see. When your heart aches from a weight it cannot carry, may that strong love enter to lift the burden from you. And when there is a storm of destructive thoughts in your head, may that gentle love come and ease the doubt. And when the mind is full of fear and distress, may that kind love accompany you and bring you joy. And when your spirit is worn and you feel you can go no further, may that persistent love bring you to your somewhere place. And so during those times, those tough, tough times, may there come into your life approachable, trustworthy, open, helpful people who amazingly give a shit. And so that was summarizing what our lovely young survivors asked of us. And so there we go. So over 20 years ago, this young man, when I was caught up in moral panic in my unskilled and inexperienced way by other people, and asked him a question about the conversations we had together. And I said, "And so what helped your behavior?" We were on the floor and we were drawing, and he showed me something. I said, "How did that help your behavior? That's very skillful." What? How'd that help your behavior? He said, "That's not what you asked me." And I can still hear the beautiful drum beat of his hand on his heart. When you drum the chest cavity, you can hear it. He said, "That's not what you asked me. You asked me what helped me." And that kind of, the air stirred between us. And I thought, I was fundamentally changed as a person, as a practitioner, to go beyond the neoliberal and the clinical. Not that I was very neoliberal clinical in the first place, but it certainly deepened my conviction. And so I held that within me until my baby turned 18. And then I went, right, you said, here I come. And so it's been a bit of a long journey. So it has to get here. And so the focus was on the experience of professional intervention for young survivors of all forms of violence, exploitation, abuse, and neglect. And so when I was listening to Nina's fabulous work, there was just the echoes of what the young citizens who spoke to me spoke about. And throughout this, I will interject again their wisdom, because my belief in the research was very much matched, very passionately, with their belief in the research and their belief in that we as adult professionals really need to treat them as people who do understand what's happening. So I just found that quite beautiful. So my theoretical lens was a feminist post-colonial child rights lens. So it wasn't just the child rights lens, it was from those two very clear anti-oppressive um, pathways that brought me to kind of the child rights lens. I I started with incredible rigor for myself. But I'm glad I did it because I'm very conscious that we practitioners are marinating in the literature which forms our practice. So we can't separate it. When people separate the researchers and academics and practitioners and policy people, I go, what is wrong with you all? Like we're all coming, from the same direction. And I was very conscious of, because I do a lot of consultancy as well to practitioners, that what they read informs how they're gonna kind of practice. So I went into literature because I was dead fascinated about, well, how are we talking about and constructing these fabulous people that we call children, young people, clients, etc. And while I find it quite heartening that we were honoring the people's personhood separate from the violence and abusive actions and behaviors of others, is also noteworthy that a high number kind of emerged identities, traumatized child. Well, that was one of the most gentle descriptions of them. So it was. So it really was emerging, and as I was reading, I was trying to hear and feel and know the person in between very heavy laden clinical and professional words, and mm, not so. And so it was interesting. This young person said, but it's like, I don't know, they kind of make you feel you're disabled or different compared to everybody else. Categorized. That's probably it. They categorize you as different, and you're not human. You're sick. I find my heart starting to beat faster. This is quite interesting. As I got before the line that says, you're not human. So these young people who are turning to us for help, for assistance, for solids, and not just this particular young person, but other young people were describing it. And in this person's experience, that they were felt as if they were not human. Um, oops, read my buttons. And so what I found in the literature was that very dense, that very pathologizing language, criminalizing language, like Nina said. And Natalie talked about that neoliberal, that psychiatric lens that social workers are kind of grabbing for legitimacy. 100%. As I was listening to the two of you, I went, yep, yep. Found it in the literature when it came to describing our young citizens who have faced various forms of violence. What was missing? Loudly missing. The silence was very bloody deafening. Was any political content or political descriptions of their language, like young citizens, and even survivor. That kind of blew me out of the water. And the word survivor was used very, very little. Um, and when it was still attached to victim survivor. And it was still at a fixed identity rather than surviving, ing. It was survivor. And I'm really summarizing this stuff for you because I've got whole separate presentations on just the literature itself. No spiritual or cultural content whatsoever. No language of disenfranchisement and how we disenfranchise our young citizens as people, and then when they're further constructed as young people who've experienced forms of violence, a lot of disenfranchisement there. No language of oppression, no language at all, and no language of child rights. Now, I found the child rights language in the political journals, like all the child rights journals that I've got sitting over there, but not in the, and I'm going to say like the mainstream stuff that we all access, like our child and youth service review journals and our child abuse journals and our maltreatment journals, etc., etc. So there really was a very separation of, well, we'll discuss child rights under a political framework, and we'll discuss, I don't even know if they'll call them therapeutic or counselling or healing rights under kind of a clinical, and back to Natalie saying that medicalized framework. So even before I kind of got anywhere near a child or young person, I should have turned back and run the other direction. But I thought, surely not. Anyway, let's see what happens. I do talk about the recruitment process as being political process. I contacted 34 organizations as part of the recruitment strategy. 31 responded to me. I thought, great. And I went to a lot of team meetings and give people 1 hour and 1.5 hour free seminars on all the literature I'd read. But out of those 31, only five agencies agreed to distribute. And all I was saying was, would you distribute the information? I wasn't even saying like put me in front of a child or a young person, but only five distributed it. So major limitations, I think, to my research. The distribution of the experiences that children and young people across the violences you can see visually. And that fits with the Australian childhood maltreatment study that looks at high rates of domestic and family violence and sexualized violence. 62.2% of our nation has been oppressed by some form of interpersonal violence like that. So again, yeah, it tragically fitted. Now, again, in my
5
naivety,
minutes.
I thought that
Oh,
the
sorry, Mary Jo.
young
5 minutes. 5
You're
minutes.
kidding me, Georgie. 5 minutes. Oh my
Sorry, my
God!
brain.
You better have a big electronic hook to get me to keep quiet. So the professional backgrounds, in my naivety, I thought they were just going to talk about the counsellors and the therapists because that was, my initial. I kind of sit down and say, what do you reckon? Where do you want to start telling me about counsellors? Oh my goodness, it just poured out of them. It flowed and it flowed and it flowed, and I had all this fancy. I invented all these fancy games and creative stuff. They just wanted to talk. Well, we did a wee bit of drawing, but they just wanted to talk. It was just, I'd opened a floodgate. And all it says, hello, my name's Jo McVeigh. Like, what would you like to say? But they talked about more than therapists and counsellors. They talked about the cross of professional backgrounds. And there was some professionals in particular that unanimously came out on the more negative side. That's the polite version. Again, it was not a struggle for me to find themes. We did it together. We did our analysis together. And then I also because then I said, okay, MJ, you take it away and do more, put more words to it if you want to. So then that's when Vivo came in, but it was like just screamed again off the screen at me how these participants perceived the professionals regarded them and treated them, and how the young people themselves felt perceived. You regard the professionals 100% was effective help. And so I hear in social work like the effective relationship and the helping relationship. And I go, what's that? Like, what is that? What do you do? What does it sound like and look like in practice? Well, our young people very clearly told us. And so again, there was so many different God, there was so much stuff that came out. I came up with a continuum and a matrix, a very clear matrix around that stuff. But I've just taken a wee slice for you today because I have to behave myself and stay within time. And so the only language that's not their language is psychiatricized and non-psychiatricized. And so I took their language and we played with some of the language. And I found it was on a continuum, quite polar sometimes. There was very little in the mid, but the kind of the polar end. So, and this one particular, I'm just showing you this one particular slice of the matrix was how the participants felt that they were regarded. Now, let me remind us all that these are young people who've been oppressed by adult violences, who sought our help, who sought solace, who sought sanctuary from us. They talked about disregarded to regarded, disbelieved to believed, blamed, not blamed, no agency, and psychiatric eyes and non-psychiatric eyes. So let's see what they say very, very quickly. So in this one, the disregarded one, this young person talked about the mental health nurses, that you had to have good behavior because the nurses will try to be with you more. So this young person was in a child and adolescent mental health unit as a result of gang rape, and she felt that you had to be good to try to get the nurses to give you some attention. And the things like, I don't think the nurses would like you, so they'll just go away from you and they wouldn't be around you. And ready for this? And they just chuck you to the side. So, folks, I don't know if you can hear in my voice my ethical rage, and I think it's very important. But ethical and political rage is to acknowledge that, because anyway, that was my commitment to this. As opposed to this young person who said, and it's the emphasis in his voice, it was beautiful, but treated me like a real person. Mary Jo's like me, and I just love the emphasis on the me. The disbelief and belief, this shocked the living bejinkers out of me. Well, a lot of it shocked the living bejinkers out of me. But the young people said they were disbelieved about the original abuse. For example, Here's the thing. As soon as I was being questioned about what happened, the first thing was, are you sure it wasn't a dream? She disclosed at 6 years of age that she was sexually assaulted. So some of them were disbelieved about the actual violence itself. Some of them were disbelieved then about the impact, the way they were feeling and experiencing the violence. And then some of them were disbelieved that they wanted help. But you might see that in a wee while. And again, look at this one again. She believed in me, and there's that beautiful me. And so I'm writing stuff about their stories of survivance and resistance. And there's a few expletives that it was great. I think I've cleaned up most of it. I think I've given you the one with most that don't have most of the expletives in it, which was hard because there was a lot of expletives. Blamed the fact that, like, even with her, she kind of made me feel guilty for the abuse. Whoa. As opposed to this person who said, she would tell me, because I used to think it was my fault, but she would tell me, no, it's not your fault. Just absolutely divine. They chose their own names, by the way. So there was no, I didn't do participant one or participant two, they chose them. No agency or agency. So this person said, they just didn't listen to me because I was under 16. I was involuntarily put into a mental health ward when I didn't really need the help at that time. As opposed to this young person giving me the option to do what I was comfortable about and talk about why I was comfortable to talk about. This young person went on to say, she was fabulous then about, but we also did the uncomfortable talking, Mary Jo, as well, because you have to be the comfortable, you have to do the uncomfortable talking. So that great analysis around that stuff. And then psychiatric guys and not psychiatric guys. And so I was sitting in a focus group with this young person, and it was like she was almost doing a rap, almost doing a rap. It was like depression, anxiety. I can't say that because there's something in my way. What do you call that bar at the top? It's in my way. Okay, here we go. Depression, anxiety, social anxiety, possible perfectionism. I had severe perfectionism, but not OCD. Possible complex traumatic stress disorder, which is apparently, I've heard, also borderline personality disorder. Like, they're very similar. And then what? We had a lot of laugh. We did a lot of laughing in the middle of all this distress. And the response from one of the other young person was slay, and we all went slay. And you know that beautiful, again, resistance, that beautiful moment. But at the same time, look at this. What are we saying to our younger citizens? That their suffering has to be recognized through that kind of lens. But this one was, I felt like I wanted to know what was happening to me, and I actually got an answer. And look how fast I'm speaking.
30 seconds.
And for me, the whole, and this is just one quote, it kind of filters into, like, what is the meaning, the lived reality of the meaning for that. And this is what my own person said, well, it was kind of okay. I was kind of forced. So this was a counselling service she talked about. I was kind of forced to go into it because I wanted to go into independent living. And they said to me, because of my mental health past, I had to have a counsellor. So I was kind of forced into this place. Not my words, her words. And so therefore, so my lovely political writer said I love, and I talked about at the beginning about how in the academic realm is also a weapon of violence and injustice. And Santos, etc., said there could be no global social justice without cognitive justice. And I was looking at that, thinking about us as practitioners, and whether you're a therapist or residential worker, etc., 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 about us thinking about what is the excuse me, the cognitive diet, the training, the frameworks that we ingest, and how then do we practice from a place of social justice. Wow, that's up a tea now. Did it. Finished.
Thank you so much, Mary Jo.
My pleasure.
The screen. Let me see if I can change this.
So what do we do now? Oh, so what do we do? Stop sharing?
Yes, stop sharing, please. That was wonderful, Mary Jo. Is this the camera? Yes, I'm going to turn around this camera so you can see who's in the space.
Who's inside? Hello.
There we go.
How you going? You well?
Thanks. So, questions, comments?
Musings or observations?
Observations, that's right. Let me see in the chat if we've got any comments or questions, and feel free for those joining us via Zoom if they'd like to.
Hey, Mary Jo, thank you so much.
How you going?
I'm good. Thank you so much. You are both entertaining, presenting, but serious, presenting some very serious findings, which really significant. And I'm just wondering what the implications of these findings are and what your plans are with this information. And I really enjoyed the Gaelic introduction.
Girl, my youngest. I just, when you talk about theory, I think you have to live the walk the talk, or whatever that shenanigans is that we talk about. What was the first part of your question? The implications of it?
Yeah, what are you hoping to do with it? So where to from this?
Well, I'm hoping to be a bit more wise in who I present it to, so I don't get shouted at and shouted down and criticised and told I'm an extremist. It's been a long time since being told I was that, coming from Belfast. And so I find that interesting. So, and to me, it's also telling. I will talk to anybody that I can talk to about it. I continue to do a lot of supporting practitioners out there, and as of last Thursday, Rutledge have wanted it as a book. So
fabulous!
Last Thursday was it? Lubna, I think was it last Thursday? I don't remember. I saw you last Thursday. I found out in the morning.
Congratulations!
To write it up. Scared. But I like that. I'm scared. That's fine.
But it sounds like you have a lot of rich data that could be included in a book.
So much. And it's not mine. Do you know?
Yes,
so the other thing I wrote as we call it is a cultural thing. It's called the Shanachie. And the Shanachie is a storyteller.
Yes.
So yes, I have to be there as a storyteller. But even when I say I and me, it's not I and me. It's the person that listened. And so,
well, thank you. I'll be interested in reading it, so you'll have to let us know if you do write a book.
Oh, thank you.
Good luck.
That's very kind. Yeah, talk to me in a year's time. Bloom will be like it.
Thanks, Paloma. Thanks, Mary-Jo. Any other comments, questions, especially those that are in the room here or again via Zoom? We've got a comment on the chat that says,
what to say?
Tayaba says, Mary's passion is infectious.
Oh, you gorgeous, darling heart. As long as that's all that's infectious about me, sweetie. You know what I mean? Nina, come on, Nina, have a chat with me. Anybody else? And Sue, I heard Sue Godwin's voice at some point. Fabulous woman, was on my original. It's all her fault, was on my original panel, weren't you, Sue? You and Emma. Say it's their fault. I ended up doing what I did. They said yes to me.
I just think it's amazing how much of a crossover there is between our two.
Yes.
Findings.
100%.
Really speaks to that. It's an issue, that
100%.
goes across every sector and
100%.
Yeah,
because I did a whole lot on how we construct, the citizen as child, etc. So that's all professions, etc. So I've got a lot to do in the book. I'm going to be doing a lot of writing and drinking tea. And loving my sons, just in case any of you who know my sons then say that I didn't say the most important thing in my life. Don't be daubing on me.
I'm actually also doing my PhD, and I'm at the other lady's point but I'm studying third year up to data analysis. But I've interviewed 10 young women who made a suicide attempt, and their accounts that most of them have experienced gendered violence and significant gendered violence as children. So they're young women. And most of the accounts sound very similar to yours, Mary and Nina. So there is significant crossover between multiple sectors of practice domains. Yeah, whether it be child protection, residential care, whether it be young people seeking help, or whether it's young people who've made a suicide attempt.
I'll have there'll be a whole chunk, because so there was, how many did I interview? 26? And a big chunk of them, of those 26, I can't remember, was it 10 or 16? Can't remember, who ended up in mental health institutions, involuntary, some voluntary. And there was a direct line between what they call self-harming and suicide attempts and being admitted. And they were the ones that told me about some of the most controlling, coercive behaviors that they're subjected to. And at one point, I'll just tell you one last story. At one point, there's so many of them. This fabulous young woman, she rolled up her sleeves, and I'm a quilter, and she showed me the quilt of her survival on her arms. And she said, and they wouldn't believe me, and they wouldn't believe me, Mujo. And because they wouldn't believe me, I started on my thighs. And she went to pull down her trousers. And I just went, and I don't know if I broke all academic protocol, but I went, I 100% believe you. I don't know if it was my voice, it was the body. She just went, oh, you could just, your whole body just go, ah. So that stuff around the body, the relationship with the body, if it's called self-harming, suicide attempts, and then what we do for young people to them. Because when I presented it last week, somebody was very passionate with me about but we know if children, young people are doing certain things, we know what to do in their best interests. And I said, how do we what is we know? But we have to intervene, Mujo. And I thought, I've been working with children, young people for 40 years. I do not leave them high and dry. But I also don't think I have the right to we know and to intervene in best interest. You must be finding all of that, Paloma, this best interest thing. That'd be a shocker for you.
Horrific stuff. Just the disbelief and the blame.
100%. 100%.
Please join me in thanking Mary Jo McVeigh.
My
Thank you so
pleasure.
much, mate.